Good morning. A happy Friday, everyone. 13:20 a.m. on the radio, the free Odyssey app. You download that app, search ESPN 1320. You can listen to us anywhere in the world. James Ham is here. Joe Brazil is here. I'm Kyle Madsen. Jiffy Lube is omnipresent. They sponsor the program, and we're hanging out with you until noon. Of course, everybody on Twitch and YouTube, youtube.com/ESPN1320, twitch.tv/ESPN1320. Everybody in the chatty house, hello, good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. And the James Ham and Kyle Madsen Show podcast. If you're listening to the show on the podcast, hi. Hope the future is going well. James Ham back. Yesterday you were down at Golden One Center covering exit pressers. We'll talk about that for a little bit, but I want to go back over and continue digging into a bunch of the stuff we talked about yesterday. Because the conversation we had yesterday was very centered around the basketball game that the Kings lost on Wednesday night. But the conversation now is, how does this thing move forward? And I think the biggest concern I have, and this is the point I think a lot of people have made, and I want to continue to make it because I think it's important. Our buddy Kirk Henderson from Mavs Moneyball said that the Mavericks are trying to do a mirage of transparency by Nico Harrison doing a behind closed doors, invite-only press conference or press roundtable. It feels like what the Kings have done since their play-in loss is trying to give the mirage of stability. Where they immediately fired Monty McNair. Hours later, have Scott Perry hired. And this feels to me like they're trying to move this thing in a direction where they're going, hey, look, everything's fine. Everything's good. We know what we're doing. We got a handle on this. And to me, I said this yesterday, I have no reason to give them the benefit of the doubt that they have a handle on any of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely fair, Kyle. I mean, in all honesty.
And it's not a Scott Perry thing. It's pick a GM.
Yeah. We had a situation a few years ago when Kevin Johnson was elected mayor in Sacramento. And he got elected and like the next day went to the mayor's office with a tape measure to start measuring the room for his desk and, like looking at drape like panels, like to see what drapes he'd want. And like it got really awkward because like
that's very strange.
Yeah. So I mean, Heather Fargo was still the mayor at the time, and it was like this weird situation. It's just weird to have literally be in the locker room when the news breaks that your general manager has been fired, have players ushered out of the room to go like, hey, get dressed right now, Domas. Get dressed right now, Jonas. We need you guys upstairs right now in headquarters. We need you right now. Let's go.
And from what I understand, did so after Monty McNair spoke with the team in the locker room.
He spoke with the team after the game. Then all of the players went to the practice facility is next door in the headquarters, basically. They got everybody in a conference room, I assume, or maybe on the floor. I'm not sure which. And Doug Christie, who is the interim head coach, does not have the job, could not tell them he has the job, spoke to the team, and were like basically told, like, yeah, Monty's been let go. And it's not the whole team. It can't be the whole team because a lot of these guys already left. Like, we're talking, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour after the game. Some of these guys got dressed, took a shower, got out of there. Like, bye.
I don't want to continue. Like, I really don't want to continue harping on the processes here, because that was the thing with Mike Brown being let go. Like, it makes on paper it makes sense, but it's how it went down. And I don't want to keep on harping on how all this stuff goes down, but it's indicative of what the problem is. There's not an actual plan, because if there was, Monty McNair's not speaking to the team after the loss and then getting fired literal minutes later.
Yeah.
That's not happening. Your interim head coach, who may or may not be the head coach next year, is not the one telling the team, some of the team, this after it just.
Well, Kyle, there's clearly, we keep seeing the symptoms of an underlying disease. These are all symptoms of chaos, symptoms of mismanagement, symptoms of just flat out not having a real grasp on owning a basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how else to describe it. Again, we'll get into this a little bit as we go along, but like my experience with Scott Perry was so positive in the 3 months he was here.
Sure.
And again, I see people blowing up like, oh, did you see what his 4 draft picks did? Did you see what the free agency signed that summer? Oh, everyone wanted to applaud what he did that summer. It's like, you can't judge a guy by a 3-month, not only 3 months, on the job, but also 3 months as the number 2. Like that wasn't his team.
Sure.
It was Vlade's team. He was an assistant GM. And there were 2 other assistant GMs. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Peja Stojakovic and Ken Catanello were both there as well as assistant GMs. So he was one of 4 people in a front office. But at the same time, like, there is something to Scott Perry that I fully respect and I'm on board with.
Sure.
The fact that you fired a GM, though, at 10 o'clock at night and had news break that another one had been hired at 8:30 the next morning.
That's it. That's the problem with this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not who they hired. It could have been Calvin Booth. It could have been freaking, who's the guy in Oklahoma City? Who's
Sam Presti?
Sam Presti. They could have hired Sam Presti.
Well, if they hired Sam Presti, everyone would be celebrating the streets of Sacramento.
But no, it's still, there would have been this. Yeah, because that would have been a coup to get. I understand it's a bad example, but a person of that caliber, like this, that is not my problem. My problem is that you've done this. You have no idea who your head coach is going to be moving forward, and my worry. And again, I might be wrong here. My worries are very often misplaced. I understand that. That is, I'm self-aware in that regard. My worry is that this is another move or set of moves with an eye toward just make the playoffs. And I can't stress enough, and I apologize because we're rehashing a lot of what we talked about yesterday. But I can't stress enough how different the Kings need to look moving forward. And I don't think there's a shortcut to contending or a shortcut to the playoffs where you're a legitimate contender in the playoffs. I don't think there's some shortcut to that. And that's what this feels like. To me, this feels like, okay, well, hang on. If we get Scott Perry, who we know, and we know that he can be a GM and he's well-respected, okay, we'll get him in here, and then we'll figure out the coach, and then we'll make these small tweaks, and then we'll be right back. We're going to skip the part. Like, no, you failed. Your window closed. It is very, very difficult to now open a new window with this same kind of core group. There needs to be a restart. You got to go back to square one here, and I'm afraid, and maybe they will. Maybe Scott Perry will. But I'm afraid that that ownership's idea here is this move is not the best thing long term. This move is the best thing to immediately fix and band-aid what the problem was this year.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I mean, I've just got much bigger concerns.
Okay, what's that?
My concerns are that we had some sort of battle last offseason, right? Where there were people who didn't want to re-sign Mike Brown, and there were people who did want to re-sign Mike Brown. You ended up, Monty McNair and his group won out, and they re-signed Mike Brown. The cracks in the foundation were already there, right? You get 31 games into the season, you fire Mike Brown.
Right.
That, again, is not a Monty McNair thing, and to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure it looks like he refused to have a press conference for a move that he didn't want to do.
So, okay.
But then here's my biggest issues. You allow a lame duck front office that's done, that is cooked, and that you are already starting to move on from. You're already, I mean, we're talking 2.5 months ago, you're already planning for who's next, which we know who it is. It's Scott Perry. I brought this up a month and a half ago.
You've been talking about Scott Perry.
People got all angry and said, why do you keep bringing up Scott Perry? It's like, because I'm telling you what I'm hearing. I'm not telling you, hey, Scott Perry's the guy. We got to go out and get Scott Perry.
Right.
I'm telling you that, like, Scott Perry is being mentioned again, and I'm hearing it all day long. Right? And if I'm hearing it, you don't think Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox are hearing it? You don't think Wes Wilcox heard it 3 weeks ago when he bailed and went to the University of Utah? He didn't go to the New York Knicks. He didn't go to the New Orleans Pelicans.
Right.
He went to the University of Utah to take over as a college GM, which is a new thing.
He did not take that job to advance his career. He took that job to get out of Sacramento.
Well, because he knew what was coming.
Right.
Okay, so, but now here's the problem. Why, if they were not here long term, if they're not going to be the ones who clean up the mess, why would you have them be the ones that trade De'Aaron Fox? Why would you have them be the guys that rerouted your franchise in such a dramatic way that will have ripples for the next 5 to 10 years?
I want to pause you there because you might have info on this that I don't, and I okay. Are we certain that that was a Monty McNair driven move? Because that to me screamed, this is what ownership wants to do. Ownership badly wants to make the playoffs now. They don't want to trade De'Aaron Fox, where in my brain, this is the fake thing I've come up with. There's the front office with Monty McNair, who had this whole trade package centered around picks and young players. And then ownership said, no, that's not good enough down the road. We need to make the playoffs now. And Zach LaVine is on the table. That's the win now.
No, I agree that that's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened. Like, this was getting Zach LaVine is an ownership decision. It was not a Monty McNair decision. It was not a Wes Wilcox decision. They were the facilitators of the trade. But I do not believe wholeheartedly that they were the ones that actually were the ones pushing that idea. Zach LaVine wanted to come to Sacramento last season before he got hurt. His agent tried to push him to Sacramento. Everyone tried to push him to Sacramento. The ownership group here in Sacramento wanted him. And Monty McNair said, not doing it. I'm not doing it. We don't have the salary cap. That will kill us financially. We will not be able to do it. And so it didn't get done. Like, Monty won that battle, but it was only a matter of time. I mean, this is the third time realistically that Vivek had tried to go out and get Zach LaVine. And so when this whole thing unwinds, like, yeah, like the postmortem is bad, but if I'm Monty McNair, if I'm Wes Wilcox, and I've got someone saying, hey, we want you to do something, and you're looking at this and saying, that's my record. You know, we talk about records out there, like, you know, Doug Christie as an interim coach now has a record as an NBA head coach. He's 27-24. Mike Brown has a record. An interim coach who takes over for a couple of games, he doesn't really have a record, right? Yeah. He doesn't have a win-loss record.
David Adelman's 3-0 or whatever.
Yeah, but players themselves don't have, you know, win-loss records. Right. But general managers have there's a list of all of their transactions that is readily available to anyone that wants to look for it.
Right.
You can go see. And when you look at that transaction at the end, I don't want that transaction on my record. And if I'm only here for a couple more months and I know it, and I'm already looking at this, like, this thing is going south, and I've already seen the coach get fired that I did not want to have fired. And now I've got the best player and they're trying to trade him. I would have said, I'm out. I don't care what I'm good to go.
Mutually part ways now.
Let's mutually part ways right now. Go ahead and give me some money and I'll leave the door. I'll leave right now. And you can have this on your record.
Right.
Not my record.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. So this goes down as a Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox transaction. Maybe they think they got the best they could out of the situation. But like,
the other question that comes up for me is, you talk about the Mike Brown firing. Why did Monty then take sole responsibility the way he did when he finally did do that press conference? Because, and I say this, I'm not naive to the fact that he's kind of trying to save his job. So he's not going to go, wasn't my decision. He's obviously not going to do that. but he just went mine. Like full stop. It was my decision. He got asked I think you asked him point blank, whose decision was it? And he said, mine.
Because that's a job. It's to fall on your sword.
You can give a word salad answer.
Yeah.
You can say
we've heard those.
Right. You could say organizationally, we came together and we decided that this was the best thing to move forward. You can do that instead of just going, I did that.
Yeah.
Like he took that. And now we find out yesterday from Sam Amick and Anthony Slater that, hey, actually, you know what? No, he didn't. All right, man. It's really, really difficult for me after, and it might just be the feeling of knowing like, man, they should be playing tonight.
Yeah.
The Kings should be playing. There's playing games tonight. The Kings should be playing one of them. And maybe that's where maybe in a month, the dust will settle and it'll feel different. But all of this, everything that's happened for the Kings since the horn sounded in their loss on Wednesday seems to be heading down the same track they always head down.
Yep. There's an underlying disease.
Yep.
And we just keep treating the symptoms.
And there is a long way to go. Maybe this all changes. Maybe the spread gets flipped and they do the right things and we'll be here. We'll talk about it. And if we're wrong, we'll be the first ones to say we're wrong. But man, it feels like they're going down that same track. We'll continue talking about this. We got to take a look into the roster. We'll look at some of the stuff we looked at yesterday while James was out. We'll continue doing that today. Your A's, your Sacramento A's are red hot. They won 3 in a row. They swept the Chicago White Sox. Tyler Soderstrom can't keep hitting home runs. We might get to that. And we'll take a look back at the Monty and West era. Plus, the NBA postseason begins this weekend. We've got predictions and all of that jazz coming up. That's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Joe Brazil is here. We're the Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. Back in a second on here on ESPN 1320 at Sacramento Sports Center. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, James. Hi, guys. Yeah, he is. Smoking the ball. That home run he hit last night was a freaking tank. Yeah, this is a good point. I'm gonna save that, Ash. I wanna respond to this on air because I think this is a really good point. Hi, JT. Joe Brazil, everybody. Joe Brazil. Hey, there he is. Thanks, dude.
My King stuff on,
appreciate you. Somebody brought up yesterday in the chat something about when can we switch teams, and I meant to respond to that and I forgot. The thing with the whole, we want to switch teams. I don't know if anybody remembers Nate Goodyear. He was at the other station back in 2015, 16-ish. I did radio with him in college, and we did a ton of shows together. We hung out all the time. And he would always bring up, why can't your sports team be like a relationship? When a relationship is bad, you leave that relationship and you go to a different one. And you can try that, but there's no, like, Joe, you're a big Kings guy.
Yeah.
You could today go, I don't want to be a Kings fan anymore, but you're never going to love another team the way you love the Kings.
That's the point.
That's
the point.
You're trying to separate yourself from this pain.
Yeah.
Pain sounds so dramatic.
This
sports pain.
Sports pain.
Right?
Yeah.
And trying to separate yourself from that. But the fact is the joy that you get from walking up to Golden One Center for game 1 of the playoffs, joy you felt, you'll never feel that with another team.
Not with another team. So absolutely not.
You can, if you're a Kings fan or an A's fan or whatever decrepit franchise, you can go, okay, cool. If Jesse Tapia can come in and go, I'm going to not be a Dolphins fan anymore. Okay.
No, at the end of the day, no one's going to stop you, but you're going to lay down at night and it's not going to feel the same.
Exactly.
It's just the truth.
I could today, we talked about this with the A's. I can go, cool, I'm going to be a Padres fan now.
Yeah.
A big Padres guy now. The Padres win the World Series. I'm not. If the A's won a World Series while they were in Oakland, I would have cried, bro.
Yeah.
That would have been like that one of the happiest moments of my life.
Yeah.
And I will never feel that for any other team. So yeah, if you're a Kings fan and you're like, yeah, I want to quit, okay, go ahead. But you're gonna be back when you'll be back.
I'll keep receipts. Don't worry. Don't worry.
If you want to say right now, I'm giving everybody the free reign to do this. If you want to say right now, I'm done being a Kings fan, you may say that now, but I'm leaving the door open for you. Like you can leave this house.
Yeah.
I'll leave the door unlocked.
You'll leave the door unlocked?
Yeah, and next October, game 1, you'll be back on the couch with us.
You will be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
can you tell that person to hang on for a second, the person that's on the phone?
Absolutely.
Just pick it up and say, hold on 1 second. Yeah, and then put him on hold. Okay, now you can jump back in.
I mean, it's a given, but what a lot of people need to realize is that this is part of it. This is what makes it so sweet once it does happen. And I get it, how frustrating it is to be a Kings fan, but this is what makes it that much better when we turn things around, you know? So.
Yeah, man. That's it. Being a sports fan is 99.99%
agony.
Yeah. Oh.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
That sounded very, hello, it's ESPN 1320, the Insiders. James Ham, Kyle Madsen, Joe Brazil. Talking a lot of Kings today as the post-mortem continues. But that sounded so funny. If you're watching on the stream, you didn't catch this. But if you're listening on the radio, I hope you also might not have caught it. I'm not sure when we were. No, it was just me. I was the only person. You and I were the only person.
Yes. So I make sure that you guys aren't on air until absolutely you guys aren't in program 1 until I am saying that we're back. Like, I would never put you guys on there before.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is the right thing to do. But I wasn't sure when you started. So I wasn't sure if anybody heard James go agony. And then if anybody's familiar with the song,
I even heard that.
If anybody's familiar with the song Pretty Savage by Blackpink,
okay,
that's the song that came on. So if you're familiar with the song, think of how it started. Ding, 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 ding. It was that, and then just right into this hard ass beat right after you just went agony. It was really, really funny.
Sweet.
I enjoyed that a lot. Yeah, we were talking at the break. Somebody in the chat yesterday said, when am I allowed to quit being a Kings fan? And it's literally any time.
Right now. Yeah, you can.
We will never, we talk about this. Fan how you want to fan. I saw somebody, Leonard, say people should boycott until things change. Bro, if you want to boycott, go for it. Not going to tell you you're right or wrong. Do whatever you want to do as a sports fan is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Because
that's your pride. This is your enjoyment, your joy, your pain. However you want to process that is cool. But we're talking about it. You'll never, if you want to quit being a Kings fan, or if when the A's left Oakland, you want to stop being an A's fan, or the Sonics left Seattle, and so you're never going to be a Sonics fan again. You'll never pick up another team. You might say you pick up another team. You want to quit being a Kings fan right now, and you say, "Hey, I'm going to be a Pistons guy. I'm going to be a big Pistons guy now. I buy a Pistons hat and a Pistons hoodie and a Pistons t-shirt, and I got my Cade Cunningham jersey. Let's go. Let's rock. Can't wait for next season." You're not going to care about the Pistons the same way you care about the Kings.
No,
you never will. So you can go do that. Go for it. But I'm telling you, I promise you, that joy if the Pistons ever hoist a trophy is going to pale in comparison. It is not even going to be close to the joy you would feel if it's the Kings hoisting that trophy.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, my sons, my oldest has asked me a couple of times, is it okay to not be a Kings fan anymore? I'm like, yeah, I mean, actually, no, it's not. If you chose a team,
your kids for sure.
You chose a team, and you got to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. Like if for me,
mm-hmm.
if you ask your kid, you want to play soccer? He says, yeah, I want to play soccer. You sign him up. You get 3 weeks in, and he's crying, doesn't want to go to the game anymore, and wants to quit soccer. No.
Yep.
You are a teammate now,
mm-hmm.
and your teammates are relying on you to be there.
Correct.
and you will show up,
Yep.
and you will be there, and you will have your cleats, and you
Right.
will have your shin guards. And, I don't care if you comb your hair or not, but you're going to the game.
Mhm.
And so that's just how I've always handled stuff. And, it's tough for people to you're right. Everyone does get to be a sports fan, however they want to be a sports fan.
Yep.
I envy Aaron Miller, and
Yeah.
our big boss, because he's moved around so many times
Mhm.
that he gets into a market and he's all in.
He
on whatever
absorbs. He
team.
absorbs the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like his Florida Gators
Mhm.
win the national championship. He's all excited about that, right?
Mhm.
But he's also like an Arizona guy, and he's also now he's a Sacramento guy, but he's trying to choose his teams, and so I envy his ability to be sort of a vagabond fan,
Mhm.
just kind of roam and be whatever fan that you want to be wherever you're at.
Mhm.
But that's just not how I've ever been. And, I like that there are a ton of Chicago Cubs fans in Sacramento. You go to
There are Cubs fans everywhere, it turns out.
well, of course, you go to an A's game, and there were so many Cubs fans, and they're real Cubs fans.
Oh, dude, dyed in the wool Cubs fans.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, my buddy Denton lives up in Portland. His dad grew up in Chicago, so he's never lived in Chicago, but his dad taught him to be a Bears fan and a Cubs fan. That's what they are.
They went 108 years between championships.
Oh yeah.
And they had a lot of brutal losses in there. So look, here's where I know it sucks right now with the Kings. I know it hurts. I know that they fell short of expectations. And then it looks like they might be on that same track. But look, man, we're going to work through this together. And next October, we're going to be excited again.
Hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Yep. And so if you want, go ahead, Joe.
Time heals all.
That's it. So if you want to punt right now, stay locked into ESPN 1320. Don't leave us. We're hanging out. But if you want to go, I'm indifferent. I don't like, the Kings, I can't right now. All right. We'll see you in October.
Well, and that's why, I know there's been a lot this season specifically. A lot of people are like, you're so negative, whether it's on the podcast, like Sean, Brendan, and I have been called out for being way too harsh, way too negative. Here on this show, people have said, oh, you're so negative. You're so negative. I think on Reddit, people are going off on me and Matt George all the time for our negativity.
That's me.
It's you just on Reddit.
Yeah.
So I don't do Reddit. I don't even know.
I don't either. I know what people send me from Reddit.
Well, I don't even try to pay attention to it at all.
Yeah.
I don't go Google my name at all.
No.
But here's the crazy thing that
that sounds like a nightmare.
Since last summer, where have we led you astray? Where have we been wrong? Where did I not tell you that if you're going to go into this next season with a lame duck head coach, bad things are going to happen? Even when you signed him, this thing is tenuous at best. I told people here very clearly, if you fire Mike Brown, there's a good chance that De'Aaron Fox is going to ask out. And once De'Aaron Fox asks out, if you think anyone is going to be able to save that season, they're not. And Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox are going to get fired. The season ended 48 hours ago, less than 48 hours ago. All of that's happened.
It's all happened.
And it's not that I'm gloating. These are realistic things that were easy to predict. And if I was intellectually dishonest with you and wanted to sit here and say a bunch of crazy nonsense that just had no chance of working out, like pie in the sky stuff, then I wouldn't want to listen to that. So were we negative? No, we were honest. We were truthful. We were telling you what was going to happen. And I know people get so upset about it, but it's tell me where we were wrong, because there is this thing is on a dark path, and we could see the dark path from a mile away. Kept yelling, get off the tracks.
I'll say it, because they weren't they had too many good individual players for it to fully fall off the rails.
Of course.
I thought there was a chance that it might really get bad, where they're winning 35 games kind of thing. And that didn't get there, but I mean, 40 and 42, just because it's not 35 and 47 doesn't mean 40 and 42 is some major accomplishment, you know. It went sideways. And now we're sitting here after the season talking about the new GM, and we're going to get into the roster and how you need a pretty significant overhaul with the roster.
Oh, yeah.
So it's I mean, it's where it's at, man. Don't quit on the Kings, though. You're not going to be happy if you try and pick a new team.
No, I totally agree. And, you know, like the hiring of Scott Perry today or yesterday, it has not been officially announced, just so everyone knows. We don't have a date for when we have a press conference with Scott Perry, but it's probably going to be Monday or Tuesday, something like that. Look, Scott Perry was here for 3 months once before. And in that 3-month time, he was part of a group of people who made 4 draft picks because the Kings had they had 2 first-round picks that year. They turned it into 3 first-round picks and an early second. They also were able to get Bogdan Bogdanovic to come over that year. So, I mean, we can analyze the draft picks now and say, hey, drafting De'Aaron Fox, followed by Justin Jackson, followed by Harry Giles, followed by Frank Mason, followed by, signing Bogdan Bogdanovic. It didn't all work out. But to be honest, that was the most exciting time for Kings fans that I can remember. Not only did you get 4 blue chippers, 4 guys that everybody knew their names. Everybody knew their names. Justin Jackson just won the national championship in North Carolina. Harry Giles was one of the most exciting young players just with a knee injury. Frank Mason had taken Kansas all the way to like the Final Four. Bogdan Bogdanovic, everyone had heard about for a couple of years. Like De'Aaron Fox was a bona fide star, right? Then they go into the free agency market and they get George Hill to sign a 3-year deal. Coming off, it worked out to be one of the worst transactions ever. George Hill was probably the biggest free agent name this franchise has signed since Vlade Divac. George Hill was coming off a career year. He was absolutely spectacular. He was supposed to be the bridge to get De'Aaron Fox up to speed and take over. George Hill got here and didn't want to play anymore and wanted to go hunt all day. Like the Kings made a mistake with a guy who they thought wanted to be part of something. And no, he wanted the paycheck and he wanted to go out and shoot pheasants and deer. That's what he wanted to do. Okay. But Vince Carter, Zebo was so good that year.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do is just hold together a young group of players. They had 9 first and second year players along with Zebo and George Hill and Vince Carter. Vince Carter was spectacular. Like he was so good as a mentor for young players. Like, did they work out as far as did they win a bunch of games? No, they didn't win a bunch of games. Those were all short contracts to get you to the next phase of Kings basketball. The next year after that, they won 39 games with Dave Yeager running that young group up and down the court like crazy. And so, like, I don't think Scott's record, like, if we're going to analyze his 3 months here on the job, you can't say, oh, he totally botched everything. It's like, no, it was a bad team he put back on the right path. And it wasn't that long that they recovered, and they could have continued to recover, but they kept making stupid mistakes along the way.
You have to, the process there was good.
Yeah.
It's the Rockets process. The Rockets had a bunch of, and this is the point. The players weren't as good as what the Rockets have.
Yeah.
But the Rockets had a bunch of young players and said, okay, we're going to surround them with veterans. We're going to get on this track. And then we're going to use those veterans to help develop these young players. And they're going to move forward together. And then eventually we'll dispatch these veterans, but then our young guys will be veterans at that point, and we can like that's the plan. I like that process. You just got to find the players. And if they can figure that out again, if they can find that path again, that's Scott Perry's biggest job. And I see you guys on the Elk Grove Kia talk line, 916-909-1320, 916-909-1320 if you want to jump in here. I see you guys on hold. We will get to you for sure. But that's the biggest thing with Scott Perry and the new regime, the new front office. They have to find a different path than the one they're on.
Oh, yeah.
Because if the expectation is, hey, what can you do with this group? Can you make a couple of tweaks here and there and keep us or get us to square 4 instead of square 1? If that's the goal, I don't. The path isn't there.
Okay, so
there has to be something different.
I don't think that Scott is coming in to tear this thing down to nothing. I think he's here to try to make the difficult decisions and try to move the franchise forward and try to fix and get back to. We heard Domas talk about, I want to get back to what we look like in year one, like where you're building something and you're winning 48 games, but you're starting to, you see a path forward, right?
Yes.
I think that that's what his job is, to get them on the right path.
I agree.
And I think that he was brought in because the first 3 months he was here, he was such a pro, and everybody that was around the team. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. Go look at Pete Youngman's statement about Scott Perry that he put out, about his time in Sacramento. Like, just, there was an adult in the room. There was somebody who was serious and understood the game and understood how to talk to everybody around the league, understood how to get players in for draft workouts that the Kings had never been able to get in for draft workouts. He added instant credibility to a front office.
Mm-hmm.
Your hope is right now he is going to add instant credibility again, but none of that matters unless you empower him.
That's
and
it.
You get the hell out of the way.
That's it.
Empower him. Let him clean up the mess that you made.
Mm-hmm.
No one else.
Mm-hmm.
You can put whatever you want on Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox. Those dudes don't work here anymore, and you're still the owner. You've got to let this guy do his thing. And if you don't, then, again, there's no repercussions. That's the problem.
That's it. And that's my worry. And that's why I keep saying this is not a Scott Perry take. This is a Vivek Ranadive and Kings ownership take. Like, bros, exit. Like, get out, move. Let your GM trust yourself. Say, I'm going to hire this guy because I believe he's the best person to fix this team. Not, I'm going to hire this team because he's the best person for me to watch over.
Yep.
I understand ownership is going to be always going to be involved on some level. They are the ones signing the checks. They have final, like, ultimate stamp. I got it. But you also have to trust yourself to hire the right guy and then go, okay, I'm going to give this guy some runway. And there has to be an understanding. And this is what I mean. I wasn't trying to say they need to tear this thing down to the studs. I do think everything needs to be on the table, but obviously you're not going to get rid of all your players in one offseason. So there has to be some runway here to dig out of, okay, the Kings are in a hole right now and they don't really have a ladder. So you got to figure out how to get out of this hole. So, okay, let him figure that out and then give him some runway. If the Kings don't make the playoffs next year, it can't be, okay, I'm stepping in, get out of the way, Scott. Here's what I think we need to do. No, this is going to take a little time.
And if Kyle,
give your front office that time, give your coaching staff that time.
If they don't make the runway, if they don't make the playoffs, it's because you're the one who had them sign DeMar DeRozan. You're the one who had them trade for Zach LaVine.
Yes.
Take responsibility for your role and where this team is.
That's it.
Straight up.
That's it. Get out of the way. Let your front office work.
Yep.
And if 3 years down the road, it's not going the right direction, cool. Now let's move on. But if the goal is, hey, we got to make the playoffs next year, that'd be nice, obviously. And that's every team's goal. But if the mandate is make the playoffs or else, that's not going to work.
Nope.
That's not going to breed long-term health for this franchise. So I really, really hope that they're doing the right things this time. Okay. I see on the Elk Grove Kia talk line, I've got Dan and Daniel. That's fun. We've got Dan and Daniel. Don and Daniel. That's good. We got Don and Daniel on the Elk Grove Kia talk line, 916-909-1320. Would love to hear Kings fans' thoughts on this. 916-909-1320. We'll get to Don and Daniel when we come back with your calls, and we'll continue breaking down what's going on with the Sacramento Kings. And we'll look ahead to the NBA playoffs because those start this weekend. James Ham, Joe Brazil, I'm Kyle Madsen. Jiffy Lube's the sponsor. We're the Insiders. We're on ESPN's 1320 Sacramento Sports Center. I can't believe how often I stumble over ESPN 1320 Sacramento Sports Leader, but it's because I look at this screen over James's shoulder, and I just kind of check the boxes and I make sure because that's got the station and our name and the
Oh.
sponsor. And so I just use those as my visual cues as I'm doing my out to make sure that I hit everything. And I just always look up there and for some reason just stumble on it.
My man Jimmy Spencer's out here on Twitter talking about his 72-hour fast. He just finished his 7. I don't think I ever want to do that.
Yeah, 72 hours is crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so Brian, here's the problem. Tech guy, if this is the case with tech guy, get out of the basketball business. Like straight up. If that's a tech guy thing, because I do agree that going out and having a GM search, having one guy win the job and then going to the other guy and saying, hey, we want to offer you a job as well to be the number 2 and creating a tension, I think that's a tech guy thing. And it's got to stop. Like, Doug Christie needs to hire his own coaching staff if he's going to be the head coach. And again, you just hired a general manager. He needs to hire his assistant GM. It does not need to be your idea who that assistant GM is. Let Scott Perry cook. Let him find his people. Let him bring in people he trusts, because that's how you find success. Like this whole idea of allowing people in the building with nefarious like climbers, it's not conducive to any other world except for maybe the tech world.
The McAfee show is just insane.
I don't watch.
I watch whenever it's just on our TV here, and man, dude found a lane, and
everybody is
like
sweaty, and half the guys are wearing tank tops or have their buttons too far.
Everybody is sweaty is a hilarious way to describe the Pat McAfee show. It's spot on.
It's so good.
That is spot on. That is so funny.
I mean, like literally, Tom Cruise has never made a movie where he's not sweating out the entire time, and you're like, dude, why are you sweating so bad? But that doesn't mean they're not good movies. Like, I can't deal
Top
with this.
Gun, he has a glisten the entire movie.
Of course,
not one scene is he not glistening.
No.
You know when you work out and then you shower too quickly after you work out, and you get out of the shower and you're still a little sweaty. That's how Tom Cruise looks all of Top
Gun. All day long, every day. Risky Business, same exact thing. Yeah.
Aldrin J asked my plans for Sunday, having Easter dinner with my family. I think my in-laws will be there. And then I have game 1 of a playoff series to catch.
It's funny. My wife and I were like, hey, neither one of us were invited to something with our extended family, with our my in-laws or my wife's or my parents. So we're like, hey, we're just gonna go to Truckee for the weekend.
I love that for you. That sounds great.
The boys are like, hey, whatever. We'll be back on Sunday.
Yeah, good spot.
The boys still expect Easter baskets, even though they're one's 21 and one's 17.
Give me candy and money. Like, yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. Legos.
I was gonna add something else. Did I star it?
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
James Ham there. I'm Kyle Madsen. The NBA play-in tournament wraps up tonight. Dallas is in Memphis. Ja Morant is questionable with his ankle injury. And then Miami is in Atlanta. Actually, Miami-Atlanta is the first game. Dallas-Memphis is the second game. Both of those games will air right here on ESPN 1320. Coverage begins at 4:00. Atlanta and Miami might be a game where that's one where I wouldn't blame a team if they're like,
Miami?
Either team.
Okay.
If they just
But you're the Heat. If you're the Heat, you're the team that like can sneak in through the play-in and go win for some reason. I don't know why they win. They win. Oh, I mean, I know why. It's great coaching and culture.
Mm-hmm.
The Heat culture. It's South Beach. Like they lure people in, like the sirens, like crashing on South Beach.
I'll fully buy into the Heat culture thing if they make the playoffs and beat Cleveland.
Okay.
No Jimmy Butler. Andrew Wiggins, their third best player.
Oof.
You got to go into Cleveland and win 4 out of 7 against a 60 whatever win Cleveland team.
Yeah.
You can play 5 more games maybe. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to Miami and Atlanta. That's my point. I don't think either of those teams are going to be super motivated to make the playoffs.
Okay, but I think if you're a Kings fan, you should be watching these games very closely because it does actually matter.
It does.
Which is stupid. It's stupid and weird that it matters.
The Kings draft pick is on the line tonight.
It is. This is
That's
it.
Hang on. Let me redo this. Let me redo this whole thing. That's how I need to frame this. That's better. Hang on 1 second.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
James Ham is there. Joe Brazil behind the glass. I'm Kyle Madsen. We are hanging out with you until noon. Then we'll hand it off to D'Lo and Casey. Play-in tournament wraps up tonight. Both of those games right here on ESPN 1320. Coverage begins at 4:00 with Miami at Atlanta, Dallas at Memphis. And before we dig into those games, big night tonight for the Kings because their draft pick is on the line.
Kyle, this is huge. It's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
There is a weird way in which the Sacramento Kings can still retain their pick.
Oh?
Here's the sequence of events that must unfold.
All right, hang on.
Let
me get my buttons ready. Okay, here we go. Step one. Because there's something that needs to happen in each game and then an additional event. So here we go. Step 1.
I want to say something and I'm not going to. Step 1. You cut a hole in the box.
Stop.
What's in the box?
Step 1. Very clearly. The Miami Heat play the Atlanta Hawks. The Miami Heat win. The Atlanta Hawks at 40 wins fall into the NBA draft lottery. That's step 1.
Oh, okay.
Step 2. I'm not going to say anything else other than this. Step 2. If somehow the Dallas Mavericks show up against the Memphis Grizzlies and beat the Memphis Grizzlies, the Dallas Mavericks now move into the top 8, which makes them lottery ineligible.
Takes them out of the lottery.
And drops the Memphis Grizzlies and their 48 wins into the lottery. So now the Kings go from the 14th spot to the 13th spot to the 12th spot. They'll be in a tie if these two things happen. If Atlanta loses and if Dallas wins, the Sacramento Kings would be in a tie for the 12th spot in the draft lottery. There will be a coin flip to see who gets the 12th pick,
which is step 3,
and who gets the 13th pick. If the Kings beat the Atlanta Hawks in the coin flip because they have identical records, the Kings would be the 12th spot in the draft lottery as long as a 13th or 14th didn't move into the top 4 and push them into the 13th or 14th pick. They would keep their pick. So I'm saying there's a chance, Kyle.
There's a real chance. And it's going to be the coin flip heard around the world because that coin flip between the Kings and Hawks is to determine whether the Hawks get that pick.
Oh, the Hawks are going to be so pissed at themselves. They are.
They needed to lose one extra game.
They needed to lose one extra game, and they can't lose this specific game.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have, like, again, I love Quinn Snyder. You're going to have Quinn Snyder go in there and give, like, his rah-rah speech.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have their front office walk in and be like, all right, look, guys, here's the deal. We really, really need you to win this game. And they'll be like, why? Well, because if you lose this game, we could lose the Kings draft pick, and we already traded our draft pick to the San Antonio Spurs, so we won't have a draft pick.
I don't know how much that motivates players, but it's certainly I can't. There's no way the coaching staff operates with this in mind. They're trying to make the playoffs. Like, you've come this far. They're not worried about this draft pick right now.
No, the front office is worried about the draft pick. Everyone else is worried about the game.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me if the front office is very quietly like, oh, hey, kind of.
Well, and to be honest, I think Miami is a really tough matchup for Atlanta, because you know why? Because there's a plant. Sacramento Kings gave up 2 second-round picks to trade Davion Mitchell to the Toronto Raptors, who would then waive Davion Mitchell or trade him to the Miami Heat. And with the Miami Heat, he will stop Trae Young, and the Kings will get their draft pick back.
Ugh. Gross. It's so gross that this is the count. I hate this.
But it's possible. It's possible. Not only that, the 12th pick has a much better mathematical odds of moving into the top 4 than the 14th pick.
Yeah.
And the Kings don't lose their pick until after everything is said and done with the draft lottery.
Right.
So there is a way, though. There is a small glimmer of hope, which is exactly what we've been telling you for like 2 weeks. All this like, oh, and they have no pick. Well,
they might.
Like, the other thing is, like, I'll just real quickly, if they do lose their pick, if what I just said doesn't happen, they do lose their pick, it's not the end of the world, because that means as of July 1st, they have every one of their picks from 2026 until 2032. They have their 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. Their 31 has a pick swap with the San Antonio Spurs, but they also have additional picks in 27, and they have additional pick in 31. Those are both unprotected picks, one from the Spurs, one from the Timberwolves. And on top of that, as of July 1st, if that pick is gone, that means the Kings now have their 2026 and 2027 second round picks back as well.
Yeah.
So Scott Perry will have a ton. He will have 9 first round picks. He will have a bunch of second round picks to play with and to go to try to help improve this roster.
Speaking of improving the roster, let's get out to Don online. Oh no, we just got. Is it Don or Daniel? Don? I think it's Don. According to what you gave me, it's Don. All right, we got Don. He wants to talk about the Kings build moving forward, so he's gonna be watching the play-in games close tonight. What's up, Don?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for taking my
Go
call.
ahead, Don.
I think we need to start like a Kings fan parlay where we bet on all three of those things happening to keep our pick.
I wish we could. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get the coin flip in there. But anyways, I was listening to the Kings Beat podcast a couple weeks ago.
Great podcast.
Hey, I'm on that.
Yeah. Candlestick Chronicles, also a very quality podcast.
Pod. Thanks, Don. Checks in the mail.
But one of the things you were saying, James, that scares me to death is, if we do lose our pick this year, it opens up all our picks to trade. And the problem with that is, I don't know. I feel like DeMar DeRozan, for argument's sake, let's just say that was the first mistake because he didn't fit. And then you traded for Zach LaVine and his, $45, $50 million contract. And that was mistake number 2. And I think the worst thing you can do when you make some mistakes is you keep doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on that mistake to try to cover it up. So if you go forward and let's say, just for argument's sake, it's Kevin Durant, and you trade a bunch of picks and contracts to make up to go get Kevin Durant, who couldn't even make the playoffs with Phoenix, a more talented roster this year, to try to cover up those 2 mistakes. Well, now you're not just damaging your franchise for 2 years like you did with the Zach LaVine trade, because that's going to be hard to build around that contract. You could be trading up picks, 6-7 years down the road and really damaging this franchise. So I hope they don't do that. I hope they strip this thing down to the ground and start rebuilding, kind of like OKC did.
Thanks for the call, Don. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. So my concern is this. Well, actually, it's not even my concern. I'll just be honest with you. Vivek is not going to green light them tearing anything down. He's just not. Like, to go all the way back to the basics. They're not going to do that. NBA guru Zach all the time. Hey, what can you get for? How many first round picks can you get for Domas? How many first round picks? Like, it doesn't matter, because the Kings aren't going to do that. Mm-hmm. They're just not. Like, he's driven up ticket prices so high. Not only that, but he gave away his minor league baseball stadium to the what were the Oakland A's to the A's at this point. And so now he's brought in more competition for his sports dollar. He's not going to reduce ticket prices. So he's not going to go all the way backwards to have a horrible team. He's going to try to, whoever's coming in, it's with the idea that they will try to recapture whatever it was that made them good 2 years ago and try to get this thing back on the right track. Mm-hmm. I just don't think he's ever going to greenlight a full rebuild 100%. And that hurts for fans that want rebuilds, but it's just not, I deal with the realm of what is likely or probable to happen. I know there are a lot of people out there that want this, but I don't even go down that path, because I don't think it's an actual real thing that could happen.
Yeah, and I agree. Mostly in because of what you said, but also it would be really, you don't want to just start giving players away and giving stuff away and taking back bad contracts and doing all that. You can do that, but this is not the NFL where you can turn things around in a year. Mm-hmm. You're now setting yourself up where you're talking 4, 5, 6 years of being bad. Look how bad the process Sixers were for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Look how bad OKC was for a while. And OKC got the thing that always gets glossed over with OKC. I got you, Joe. The thing that always gets glossed over with OKC is that they had star level players that people wanted and would give up big time assets for. And then when they acquired SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, there was no thought that, wow, hey, this is going to be one of the best two-way players in the league, and he might just be the MVP. Or he's going to be the MVP.
No, they were giving, Paul George was the star of that trade.
Correct.
And it yielded so much.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that they tanked and hit on a bunch of draft picks. I mean, they hit on some picks, but they got Lou Dort undrafted, and they had all these trades. So it's not super easy to take that route.
Nope.
I don't. And the bigger thing is what you said. I don't think the Kings ownership, I don't think is necessarily interested in doing that. All right. We'll keep talking playoffs. We'll keep talking play-in. We'll have some playoff predictions coming up for you here in a bit. Plus, what does a refresh look like? What does this restart or revamp of the Kings roster look like? We'll try and take a look at that next. James Ham, Joe Brazil, I'm Kyle Madsen. Jiffy Lube's the sponsor. We're the Insiders on ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. I feel so good about my underdog lineup tonight.
Hello, everybody.
What's the weekend looking like for the Chatty House? Anyone got anything cool planned? What's going on?
Great question.
Real quick, I did see a couple people asking about what ended up happening at the River Cats game. Let's just get to it. Real snappy.
Oh yeah, we never God, yeah, 4-day tease.
My buddy,
The Glizzy King.
you know what? I think that's what he's going for.
The
So
king
yeah,
of
that's
Glizzy.
okay.
Nobody is better at putting wieners in his mouth than that guy.
Than that guy. Yeah. Anyways, third inning, I haven't even like settled into my seat yet. I got 2, and because I'm hungry.
Of course.
So I have 2 hot dogs.
And it's $2 hot dogs. So ordering
Yes.
2 is
That's a reason.
the right move. Yeah.
That's fair.
So he opens up the first one. He's like, "Oh, these buns are really big. Like this is not going to be easy." And then, yep, I know.
Complaining about the big buns right off the bat.
Absolutely. And so I don't even finish my first hot dog yet, and this dude is 4 hot dogs complete. We'll say that. And it is the 3rd inning.
That's more than a Glizzy per inning.
Well, I
That's
think
crazy.
we
His
got in.
Glizzy to inning ratio
Is
No,
was
it was
skewed.
insane.
It was insane. And I'm pretty sure we got there at like the bottom of the first too. Like, so it was.
Oh my Lanta.
Yeah. He killed the 7 easy. Kind of anticlimactic end there, but it wasn't very suspenseful. Like it was too easy for him.
Did he
Yeah,
have
we
to do
got
like that Kobayashi shake?
Yeah.
But,
We got to start coming up with new challenges for the Glizzy King.
Yes. So I remember we were driving down there and we were trying to explain to him that he's now put himself in a situation where he has to at least try to do this because there's people that are counting on him.
The
to do
9x9.
this. Just like as we were driving down there, we were like, you've already committed to this today.
Absolutely.
And there's
Absolutely.
people that are counting on you around Sacramento and you need to do it.
We would have shamed him mercilessly if he had not.
So I'll have him call in a couple of days or something.
Yeah, please do.
He's actually a big Kings fan, and this is not his whole shtick, his whole spiel.
Shtick?
Spiel.
Shield or
Shtick?
shtick?
I think I try to say both.
Yeah.
Shtick,
Yeah, don't say
spiel.
that. Never say
Sorry.
that word again.
Sorry, my apologies. But
Just
he's actually
making
the one
up
that got
words.
me into the Kings, funny enough.
Nice.
So shout out to him. But
Is he a beer guy?
yes, huge.
That's the holy grail. 9 beers, 9 dogs, 9 innings.
We'll go for it.
Perfect. Hour number 2, that's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Joe Brazil behind the glass. We're hanging out with you until noon, and we're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. And at noon, we'll hand it off to D'Lo and KC, and they will take you up to 4 o'clock, and that is when play-in action begins right here on ESPN 1320. We have the Miami Heat at the Atlanta Hawks, going right into the Dallas Mavericks at the Memphis Grizzlies. Both of those games will decide the 8 seeds in their respective conferences, and both of those games will decide which team will lose in 4 or 5 games in the first round.
And whether the Kings will have their draft pick or not.
And whether the Kings have their first round pick or not in this year's draft. You were at Exit Pressers yesterday.
I was.
Last year, it felt like there was kind of an overarching theme. Was there an overarching theme to yesterday's press conferences? Like, did you get the idea? And I know that we may not have seen it necessarily in the answers because even if this is not, I cannot state enough how much I'm making this up. If Domas gets up there and goes, let's say for a moment, Domas wants out. He's done with the Kings, doesn't want to be here anymore. He's not going to get up on the podium and be like, yeah, I don't want to be here anymore. That's just not how this works.
Nope.
Or it could be any player. It could be DeMar, Zach LaVine, or Keon Ellis, Keegan Murray, doesn't matter. So they're not just going to get up there and say that. They're gonna answer questions. So I'm not asking about the answers. I want to know the vibe. Was the vibe as dour as it is out here
No.
with us normies?
No. I would say the night before, like the DeMar DeRozan talk in post game was pretty hard. It was hard.
Yeah, for sure.
And look, I've said this, but there are a lot of things that I don't love about watching DeMar DeRozan when he's on the basketball court. But he's always been a good dude. He's always been a pro's pro behind the scenes. And his realization that he had just finished his 16th season and that his time in the NBA is like approaching an end was hard to watch. And even when we talked about it the next day, he even made the comment, and he's like, you guys as sports reporters, like, you guys can keep doing this. You can do this for as long as you can. There's nothing that stops you from
right.
Getting to keep doing what you're doing. He's like, but with us, there's only so much time we have as basketball players. Yeah. And he's like, a lot of the people I grew up idolizing, they didn't get 16 years, and they certainly didn't get 17 years, which is, next year for him. And so just sort of that realization that, unfortunately, like, just to be real, is that DeMar DeRozan squandered a year of his career in Sacramento. He just did. He squandered a year that he thought that there was potential for him to do good things here. And, they talked about it before the season, getting to the Western Conference Finals and all that stuff, that's where they thought this team was. Well, this thing came undone. He's never been a part of a team where a coach gets fired midseason.
To be fair, I also kind of thought the Kings might be in that conversation.
Yeah, I think we all thought that they would be much better than what they were.
Yeah.
I don't think Western Conference Finals, but I certainly think that first, second round of the playoffs was on the table.
Yeah, for
it
sure.
just didn't go that way, right?
Sure
And so for him, like he said, I have no regrets, but you can say that, and like he has regrets. Like, you have to have regrets. Like, I try to live my life with as few regrets as possible. But that doesn't mean that you don't like sit there and say, look, I think that they're, like I could have gone somewhere else and had more success this season and still be playing. And I think that's why we get to games like the final game where he's looking around and like, man, you guys just don't have it. Like, what is going on? Why am I the only one out here playing? And that's why you get a moment where he shoots 26, 28 shots, whatever it was, like, because he's trying his best to win. And it might not be the most conducive to winning, but that doesn't mean he's not trying.
Yeah, I want to, while we're just talking about this and DeMar DeRozan's season in general, I really want to make this very clear, because somebody said something to me on the internet that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I just want to try and make this clear once again. What you just said is spot on. DeMar DeRozan was doing what he has always done to try to win games. The problem was not DeMar DeRozan, the player, in a vacuum. The problem was that DeMar DeRozan, the player, in a vacuum, did not fit with what the Kings roster was best at. What he does as a player to maximize himself and his team did not fit what the Kings needed from that player to maximize the rest of them.
Yeah.
It's not a DeMar DeRozan problem. It's a fit problem. And the fit didn't work.
No, I totally agree with everything you said.
I know that's not it, right. And I know that's separate from what you're talking about. I just wanted to take this opportunity to once again, like, DeMar DeRozan is an incredible player.
Yep. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
1,000%. It didn't jibe with what was best for the Kings.
He was the wrong player to sign.
Yes.
And like, we can talk about, like, RIP Rory, like the Kings getting hard capped by trading for him and everything else that happened there. Like it didn't work, and it hurt you. And you should have seen that it hurt you. And not only that, but it slowed the progress of Keegan Murray. It like made De'Aaron Fox less effective as a player. And realistically, it's not that he doesn't like DeMar, but the play style is one of the reasons he didn't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't want to be in a play style where all of a sudden, like, we're an ISO team. That's not what I signed up for. That's not who we are. And so, like, there are a lot of things that happen with that signing and that's why it's such a delicate balance between, like, going out there and trying to find talent, but also trying to find, the best player available versus fit, and in this scenario specifically, the Kings would have been better off, like, chasing like 8 different guys that are much worse basketball players than DeMar DeRozan than they were chasing him. But when you got your owner wanting to have a walkout of DeMar DeRozan at Golden One Center during the California Classic and is putting all this pressure to close the deal. And that's so you can literally do a walkout and have him sit courtside at the California Classic. Like, that means your system is broke.
Mm-hmm.
You should have. And again, that's why.
Not a basketball decision.
Well, it's not a basketball. And that's why as a general manager, you have to say no so often to people above you. And you have to hold a hard line and say, I'm not doing that. And unfortunately, we learn here the hard way. And again, it's not about DeMar DeRozan. It's about the Kings choosing a player that did not make any sense for their roster one iota.
Right. And they didn't, and because they couldn't bring in DeMar DeRozan and say, okay, now we're going to surround him with the right pieces.
Yep.
It was square peg, round hole.
3 years.
If DeMar DeRozan went and played for the Rockets, a team that really struggles to score in the half court, and can surround him with Amen Thompson and Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. and Alperen Şengün and Steven Adams and all these dudes that just have this defensive presence, right?
Yep.
Cool. That's not the Kings.
No.
And again, that's not blaming DeMar. It's not blaming the Kings had their own problems. It's not blaming the Kings roster. It's not blaming DeMar. It's just like, so I just wanted to make that really clear in case we don't get to talk about DeMar DeRozan anymore.
Yeah, that and like, look, when you sit here and you talk about for 3 years, the Kings needing length and athleticism at the 3 and the 4. That is like, it's something I have said 1,000 times. Every other team that beats the Kings has that exact thing. And you do not address that need. Not only did you not address that need, you brought in a 6'6", 35-year-old small forward who hasn't been known for his defensive acumen in 5 years. Like, it was the absolute counter player to what they needed. You have a flow offense, you bring in an ISO player. You need more 3-point shooting, you bring in a guy who averages 2.4 3-point attempts for the last 5 years.
Yep.
Like, everything that you did that you put into that specific player, you literally would not make that trade in 2K. If you're looking to build your roster and you see all of the attributes that you want from a player, they are not DeMar DeRozan. They are actually, every one of his attributes are counter to what you needed as a franchise. And again, it's not about him. It's about you making that decision to bring him in.
A good example of this, the other way, is the Clippers with Paul George. A little bit different circumstance. So try and follow me here. The Clippers went, hey, we can max out Paul George or we can let him walk. And let him walk. They said, we don't want to do this anymore. You're going to be gone. And instead, that opened the door for James Harden to just be James Harden.
Yep.
Whether you like him or not, the best version of James Harden is one where the offense revolves around him. And he had a very good year this year. That opens the door to bring in a Derek Jones Jr. and gives him a role. It opens the door to bring in a guy like Chris Dunn, and it gives him a role. Amir Coffey's going to have a defined role. Norman Powell will have a defined role. It's not, oh, Paul George is going to take up this oxygen now because he's Paul George and he needs the ball. It's like, no, everything kind of falls into place. And so the Clippers brought in worse players. Chris Dunn, a worse player than Paul George. I know Paul George had the injury stuff and wasn't great this year, but going into the year, Chris Dunn, worse. Derek Jones Jr., worse. More than James Harden doesn't sound great, but man, it was really effective this year.
Yeah.
And the pieces just fit together. Ivica Zubac was sensational this year, working in the pick and roll with James Harden and benefiting from a James Harden centric offense. So man, that was an example that really jumped out to me.
No,
dude, if you put Paul George on the Clippers instead of Derek Jones Jr., the Clippers aren't the 5 seed right now. They're not winning 50 games.
No, not at all. Yeah. And so here's the point, like to drive home your point. James Harden last year averaged, last year, James Harden averaged 16.6 points per game. This year, 22.8. He went up 6.2 points per game. I'm not done. This is what's crazy. Norman Powell finished the season at 21.8. Last season, Norman Powell averaged 13.9 points per game.
Man.
So his points per game went up 7.9. Still not done. Where'd Where is he? Ivica Zubats, 16.8 points this year. Last year, 11.7, went up 5.1 points per game.
Man,
you took out one piece that averaged 23, 24 points per game. Those shots got distributed to other players. Everyone got better. That is why people who want to give up on Keegan Murray should shut the hell up. You put one player that, by just his presence, made the players around him worse. And that's not to blame DeMar DeRozan, but it made the players around him worse. And you take that player out, I think the Kings could have Keon Ellis take a jump like that. I think Keegan Murray can take that jump. I think all those people that want Domantas Sabonis to average more than 19 points per game, that would have been possible. Like, there would have been more shots, more opportunities for others.
I have a lot of takes on this. I can't give you them right now because we have things to do. One of those things is this awesome underdog lineup I built tonight. Yeah, dude. I stayed away. I did not stay away from the Western Conference game, but I've got a 4-player lineup tonight. It's underdog daily fantasy. Pick higher or lower with their pick'em game. You pick higher or lower on at least 2-player stats and win up to 1,000 times your money. Excuse me, your entry. They've got this profit boost token going for the NBA playoffs, not the play-in, the playoffs. So you start off a playoff series by using your game 1 profit boost token that they'll give you. 40% profit boost. So if your lineup is going to win you $100, now it's going to win you $140. Game 2, you get a 50% profit boost token, all the way up to 100% profit boost token for game 7. So if you have a game 7 lineup that is going to win you $100, your profit boost token will make it $200. They're doing that for you for free. You don't have to pay extra money. You don't have to do anything. That is what Underdog's doing for the NBA playoffs. Here's my lineup for tonight with the play-in. Good first lineup. If you're not signed up for Underdog yet, do so. Promo code KYLEM, KYLEM. Here's the lineup. Write this down. Tyler Hero, higher than 26.5 points. He cooked against the Chicago Bulls. I don't trust the Atlanta Hawks to play much defense. Trae Young, lower than 11.5 assists. I don't trust the Hawks are not good. Trae Young is an individual force, is amazing. The way he was ejected from last game, maybe he locks in and has an awesome night. But if he does that, I think it's going to be scoring the basketball. I don't think he's going to dish out 12 assists. So I'm going lower than 11.5 assists. Alec Burks, 5.5 points. I'm going higher. I need Alec Burks to knock down 2 threes. I feel good about that because every time I watch Alec Burks, he steps on the floor and lights it up.
Unless he's in the Sacramento Kings jersey when he was horrible. Outside of that, yes.
Kings and Warriors legend Alec Burks. I'm going higher than 5.5 points. And then Max Christie for the Dallas Mavericks in the West. This number feels like a trap, but I fell into it. Higher than 3.5 points.
Oh.
That feels exceedingly low to me.
Yes.
Which, typically, when I tell you that, like, man, that number feels low, then go low. Because that's what they want, but man, I'm going higher. I need Max Christie to get me 4 points. I need 2 buckets out of Max Christie. Or 2 buckets, or 1 bucket and 2 free throws out of Max Christie. That's all I need tonight. Need to cook. Max.
I'm here for it.
Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code KYLEM, KYLEM, to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code KYLEM, KYLEM. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/extend.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. It's so insane that that's how they wrote the...
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't get underdogfantasy.com/promo rules or whatever. I don't know. I am going to run the...
All right. Alec Burks played 13 games for the Kings in the 2018-19 season when they needed a backup point guard. In 13 games, he scored 22 total points. He was 0 for 6 from 3, 9 of 20 total from the field. He was not good. Okay, so NBA guru Zach, Sabonis and Monk keep talking about wanting a good point guard. How do we do this without giving up Keegan? You do it by trading DeMar DeRozan or trading Zach LaVine. That's it. Like you're gonna have to give up draft picks. Giving up draft capital is not idiotic. The Kings have 9 picks over 7 years, and to be honest with you, their success rate with first round picks is probably like 23%. So we can talk about that, but like they have extra picks. If you don't think the San Antonio Spurs 2027 unprotected first round pick has value, you're crazy, and you can probably get a very, very good player along with DeRozan for that pick. So like they do need a point guard. That's it. We'll see. Who would I trade, LaVine or DeRozan? I live in a world where number one, DeRozan is spelled with a Z, and doesn't have an E in it at the end. But also, sorry, Rust Dog, I'm just being sarcastic. But also, I live in a world where you can't trade Zach LaVine, and that's because he makes too much money, and nobody's going to trade for that contract. 46 and 49 million. You might be able to move him in the last half of his second year. But I also, like I've talked about this before, I think there's a very good possibility the Kings ask Zach LaVine this summer if he'll opt out of the final year of his deal and give him a 3-year extension or something at like 120. Maybe that works. Maybe it wouldn't. Marcus, you asked who would be my ideal point guard. Man, I don't know. It's too early. The Kings have to figure out a way to address so many things. I want a guy who can play in the pick and roll. I want a guy who can shoot the 3. Oh, Kyle's not back.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Welcome back into the Insiders. I'm James Ham. Kyle Madsen will be back in just a moment. There's Kyle Madsen walking in the door right now. We're back, Kyle. We're back.
Yeah, we are. Hey, Joe, do the thing again. Sorry. No, I'm joking.
We are, of course, brought to you by Jiffy Lube.
Nice.
Hello.
No, you're crushing it. Keep going.
Oh.
I ran into Damien, and I was chit-chatting with Damien because I thought my mental clock was off. That's it.
That's all right.
We're good. Rookie mistake
and now,
on me.
Back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Huh.
Nice, Joe.
Look at that. We did not know Joe had that in him.
I had no idea. It's his radio voice, his broadcast voice.
I would have just done it in Keegan Murray voice.
You do we glossed over it the other day. You do a very good Keegan. You have a very good Keegan impression in your bag.
I try to do a good version of Keegan. I just go out there and do the best I can. And, at the end of the day, try to give effort.
If it was like, because you're not an introvert, if your voice was 25%, if the impression was 25% more introverted, I think you would nail it.
Oh yeah, I'm not an introvert.
You're definitely you're projecting a little too much, but other than that, dude, it is a very, very good Keegan.
That's funny.
Anyways, we were talking a little bit about the NBA playoffs today and the play-in, and we'll get to the postseason, we'll get to the predictions, but you brought up Keegan Murray specifically, and then Domas, and the impact this season might have had on them, and the impact of having DeMar DeRozan on the team, and just kind of the singular offensive force that he is, and how much that affected them. I'll buy that a little bit. But my concern with Keegan started before this year. And again, this is not, we talked about this yesterday. Keegan is not a bad player. That is not my thought. My concern is that we have to drop Keegan's ceiling pretty dramatically. But it sounds like you're not there, and that the potential exit of DeMar DeRozan in the offseason will put Keegan back on track where his ceiling is this dynamic all-star two-way player. I would love to see that. I am a big Keegan guy. I would love to see that. But for me right now, the ceiling's just been lowered pretty significantly toward, okay, you starter on a title team. If he's eventually on a title team, I think he could start. He'll be an awesome defensive player. Some of the stuff he did defensively this year was outstanding. But what we believed of Keegan offensively was, man, we're talking last year, going into last year, man, he can get him up to 18, 19. He hit a couple more threes a game. He's up to 20 a night. And that's just in year 2. And let's watch this ascension. The ascension hasn't happened. And when you're coming off your 3rd season and you're 24 years old,
yeah,
I have a hard time believing, just based on what I've seen, that ascension is still coming.
Okay, so here would be my rebuttal.
Please.
Like, first of all, young player, again, we've talked about this in the past, like, not just a young player, but a player who's still growing into his body and everything else, right? I think, number one, he's taken incredible ascension as a defensive player. So he's shown the ability to improve as a basketball player without any question, right? It's just it hasn't been on the offensive end.
Right.
And that's where things have gotten stagnant. He was a better rebounder this year than he was the year before.
Yep.
His 3-point shot came around as the season went on, but again, kind of a weird year overall. And I'm going to blame a lot of his shooting numbers, his 3-point shooting numbers, on the fact that opportunities just weren't there. Like, he shot like basically 1.9 shots less per game this year than he did the previous year.
Shots or threes?
Shots overall. I mean, this is a player that, 2 years ago, last year, averaged 15.2 points per game. His natural ascension should have had him at 18 points per game this year. But then you brought in a guy who shoots 17 times a game. And there's no way to recover for Keegan Murray from that. Right. Like, all of the shots we look and say, okay, who's going to give up shots? It ended up being players that you didn't expect to give up shots. Like, Keegan Murray didn't have shots to give up. Him at 13 shots per game, 12.8 shots per game were the right amount of shots. But you brought in a guy in DeMar who averaged 17 shots a game versus a guy in Harrison Barnes who averaged, I think it was a 9.8 last year. So like 7 shots per game just disappeared. And the rest of these guys, again, Domantas Sabonis shot right around 12.8 shots per game. I would like to see him take an extra 1.2 shots per game, be at 14. Is this per 36? Oh no, this is per game this season. Yeah, I mean, Keegan Murray at 10.8 shots per game. That's ridiculous.
That is 2 full shots per game less than last year.
Yeah, that just is not okay. That's not how this season should have gone. Yeah. And you can say, hey, he's got to demand the ball more. It's like, how are you going to demand the ball more when you're playing, we keep talking about this, an all-star point guard in De'Aaron Fox that turns into a 2-time all-star in Zach LaVine, a future Hall of Famer at the 3, a potential future Hall of Famer at the 5, all NBA 2 times in a row, and then Malik Monk, who's got the biggest personality out of all of them. Like, how, as Keegan Murray, are you going to demand? And we can talk about the introvert thing and all that, but at the same time, he was trying to be a good teammate and trying to do what he thought was best for the team and being a team player. Okay. And what he doesn't understand is what's best for the team is for him to shoot the damn ball more.
So I think that's what I'm getting at. I don't know that there's a version of the Kings that's ever going to be one where Keegan Murray's like, okay, cool, I'm going to take 15, 16 shots a game. Because I think you're right. I think he is trying to fit it. Somebody in the chatty house brought this up, and I think this might be where we're diverging toward. We would bring up the Nuggets a lot, right? Because the kind of the bones were vaguely there. Okay, can Domas be a close enough facsimile of Jokic where, okay, maybe the bar for the players around him has to be a little higher from just a scoring perspective, but that same kind of idea where everything runs through him. Okay, who's the Aaron Gordon? Who's the Michael Porter Jr.? We thought Keegan might be the Michael Porter Jr. That scorer, that shooter, that, man, you got it. Maybe he is just the Aaron Gordon. And I lost the chat. Somebody mentioned Aaron Gordon.
For me, that's totally fine.
And
I've said that a bunch of times. He's
So
more
that's
Aaron Gordon than he is Michael Porter Jr.
That's my thought on Keegan is not, oh, he's not Michael Porter Jr. He might just be Peyton Watson. Like, no, I don't think he's that. I think that his role is different. Like, maybe he is just the Aaron Gordon in this version of he's a better 3-point shooting Aaron Gordon. Like, maybe it is that. Maybe that's what it is. But that's what I'm saying is I think what we're getting from Keegan Murray is no longer, all right, hey, we're just waiting for the ascension until he's like a number 2, maybe number 3, but a really good number 3 scorer. Maybe he's going to be defense, rebounding. He's going to knock down some threes, which is not a bad, like I said, that's not a bad thing. If he's Nick Batum's been in the league for 50 freaking years, and he's a contributor on a team that's the number 5 seed in the West right now, won 50 games.
Yep.
That is not a knock. It's just, okay, maybe it's less. We were talking Kawhi after when we saw his defense in year 2, like, oh man, could this be, is that the ceiling? Like,
yeah.
No, maybe it's not.
I don't, yeah. Okay. So like, and I'll pull something from the chat here. Odyssey Fryer says, but what's the solution for Keegan taking all the good players off the floor? No, that's not the solution. The solution is to have the right mix of players on the floor. Like if you want Keegan Murray to be your third best scorer and your third option on offense, then you have to find defensive-minded 3-and-D guys at the 2 and the 3, or the 1 and the 3, or the 1 and the 4, and let Keegan move back to the 3. That's what you have to do if that's how you want to design your team. You have to do what you have to allow him to elevate his game. And people say, well, what if he doesn't do it? Well, then you cross that bridge when you get there. But Keegan was very clear yesterday. Like he thought he had a very successful season. He thought, like defensively, he took such a leap where he can now defend 1 through 5. And he said he doesn't like defending 5s all the time.
Sure.
But he feels comfortable defending 1 through 5. And he thinks he's one of the few players in the league who can do that. I agree with him. And he said, as an offensive player, maybe it's next year, maybe it's a year after, but there will be a point where I get to do the stuff that I can do on offense. He's just being a good teammate. He's being too good of a teammate. And the answer, like good players is like a way to call, again, we can say that DeMar DeRozan is a good player. Zach LaVine is a good player. Malik Monk is a good player. Keep adding him up. Domantas Sabonis is a good player. De'Aaron Fox is a good player. All those guys are good players. I'm not saying take them off the court. What you have to do when you're building a team is you have to build a team correctly. Like, look at what OKC did. They went out this offseason. Did they go get a DeMar DeRozan? Did they go get a Kyle Kuzma? Did they go get a 20-point per game or a 25-point per game score? No, they got a center who doesn't score at all, and they brought in a point guard in Alex Caruso, a point or two, that doesn't score at all. They're just great defensively, and they complement the players around them. The natural progression for that team is for Jalen Williams and for Chet Holmgren to continue to get better and better until they are the pillars with Shea. Everyone else around them are role players that support the 3 guys that have the potential to be stars. That is just basic basketball 101. You don't go out and get 5 or 6 20-point per game scorers and think you're going to win everything. It never works. You have to have not just role players, but high-end role players. OKC just one after another role player. When one role player gets injured or is having a bad shooting night, another one steps in.
It's insane.
They're all just random dudes who know what to do and know their role. And the Kings refuse to find good role players. And when they do, they jack them around like Keon Ellis.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're talking about.
So I guess, okay. So we can go this direction then. The problem the Kings have, and this is where I don't think I agree with it, but where I'll hear the argument from people who are like, got to tear it down. I'll hear the argument because I think the Kings are in that kind of liminal space between bottom dweller and contender where they're not going either direction. And I think they have like some of those role players in place that you're talking about, but you just talked about pillars. the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Nikola Jokic, the Steph Curry, the Luka Doncic.
Yep.
Those foundational, okay, this is the guy we're building around. I don't know that the Kings have that.
Well, I certainly, like, Keegan Murray can be the third leg of a trio. He's not going to be a number one.
Right, yeah.
Which is why, heaven forbid, you don't trade your 27-year-old all-star level point guard averaging 26 points a game, because you can build around him. The problem is that the Kings didn't do the smart thing and build around the basic Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Keegan Murray trio.
That's it.
That's the problem.
That's why this is so dire, because they had it and they smoked it.
He didn't see it for whatever reason.
That trio with the right players around it, because I know people have their De'Aaron Fox thoughts, and I know that there are a lot of people who are now out on De'Aaron Fox. Think he was never going to be that guy and this and that. But man, coming out of that playoff series in 22-23, where I think Zach Lowe, one of the brightest basketball people out there, said on his podcast the other day, yeah, if De'Aaron Fox didn't hurt his finger, the Kings win that series. That's where De'Aaron Fox, he was the dude.
He was the best player on the floor.
The defending champs.
He was the best player on the floor.
Best player on the floor.
That included Steph Curry.
Yes.
Until he broke his finger.
Yes. That is how that series is going. That's where the thought was on De'Aaron Fox. Again, we're rewinding a couple of years. I know things have since changed and people's mind have changed. I got it. But we're rewinding to 22-23.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you have Keegan Murray, who just set the rookie record for made threes, and you drafted him because you think he has the tools to be an awesome defender.
Fourth overall.
He was going to be that dude. And so you had to look at that player and go, he just made that many threes at that clip, 41.1%. And we think he has upside as a defender. Great. Okay, that's a pillar. Domantas Sabonis was averaging damn near a triple-double, and he's leading the league in rebounds, and he's the hub of your offense. Cool, that's two. And De'Aaron Fox was a bona fide star at that point. It might still be. They did what we would. What when I said, do they have the pillars right now? And it's like, man, I don't know. They had it, and that's why this is so distressing.
Yeah,
because it is not easy. Like we all know here in Sacramento how long it took them to get there. It is so difficult to find those pieces. You don't just run into franchise pillars every day.
Well, and Kyle, even if you think that Levine is one of those pillars, and like that's fine.
He's 30.
But if you're going to build a team around Levine, Sabonis, and it's got to be Keegan Murray, and that's okay. But it's so much easier to build around a star point guard than it is a star shooting guard.
Yes,
because now you have the guy who's distributing. Now what they have to do is they have to go find
Chris Dunn
or Mike Conley.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to go find the other guy that can stabilize and
player like that. It doesn't have to be 40-year-old Mike Conley.
No, but that's what they have to find. They have to find that guy that can stabilize, but is a complementary piece to the other people. And people are like, "Oh, you're comparing SGA to Keegan Murray." No, I'm not saying he's SGA.
No,
you had that. That was De'Aaron Fox.
Mm-hmm.
He was that guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm comparing him to what Chet Holmgren will bring or what Jalen Williams can bring.
It's also not apples to apples. Every team's going to be different.
Yeah, every team's going to be different because every player is a little bit different than the other. But
this isn't the runway now is just shorter. You got older. If it's Keegan Murray and Domantas Sabonis and Zach LaVine, all right.
They have two guys that are 23 years of age and nobody younger than that. And those guys will be 24 next season.
Yeah.
They do not have any youth on this team at all.
It is a steep mountain to climb.
Yep.
And we'll follow it and we'll watch and we'll talk about it. And I hope they do the right stuff because it's so much more fun talking about playoff games than this.
Mm-hmm.
Got to tell you. I know you all agree with me. Anyways. We got the handoff coming up. We'll get some predictions. I think it's KC today. We have predictions. Eastern Conference, Western Conference. Who wins each round? Who wins the NBA championship? We'll do that next because this is a radio program and it's playoff series and we have to do predictions. That's mandated by Mr. Radio. So that's what we're going to do next. We're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. It's ESPN 1320 Sacramento Sports Center.
Tell you.
I disagree with this. Oh, no, hang on. I disagree with this. Keegan's a good player.
I disagree with that too.
Yeah.
I really like Keegan Murray, and I think he has a pretty high ceiling. Truly,
Russell, he's one of the best defenders in the league.
I don't think his ceiling is super high, and I still disagree with it.
Yeah, even if it's 15 points per game and doing what he does on the defensive end, he's still so incredibly valuable.
And I think he said he's a role player. I actually kind of agree with the idea that he's a role player, but that doesn't mean that he can't start.
Well, yeah, but I mean, realistically, most teams, there's only one superstar or one star level player. Everybody else is a role player to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think chasing the OKC thing, we use them as an example because it's A, they're right there, and B, there's the comparison is just easy because they have the three guys and they have all these role players, so that's what we're talking. Every build's going to be different, but OKC also, like I said, the it's not luck because SGA grinds, but SGA turning into an MVP, accelerated their rebuild, I guess, a lot.
Of course, and I'd also say the problem that you have if you're the Kings is that 2 years ago when you won 48 games, you were so far ahead of the Oklahoma City Thunder and were pacing to get better and better and better, and you veered off path. You didn't continue to build. Again, OKC was really good last year. And then they went out and they added the center that's made a huge difference, and they added the guard that's made a huge difference. They have the best defense in the league by so far that it's crazy because they added the smart pieces, and they don't have to be stars. They don't have to be future Hall of Famers. They don't have to make $25 million a year, although they paid, why am I drawing a blank on it?
Hartenstein?
Hartenstein. Yeah, they paid him, like massive amounts of money. But that doesn't matter. Like the way that they've constructed their team is so sustainable that it's just mind-boggling. And the fact that other teams just can't go out and find a small forward, a 6'8", 3-4 combo. Just can't do it.
Yeah.
Just absolutely bizarre to me. The Kings, like every step of the way, have tried to maintain so much flexibility for this magical deal that never, ever, ever, ever materialized.
I think that's the biggest problem I have with the Monty McNair is what you just said, because it was like, all right, they're going to take this big swing. They're going to take this big swing. When really, as we talk about this, it's like, man, a big swing would have been nice, but also a couple of doubles would have done the trick.
Yeah.
If you wound up with PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. and had Keon Ellis develop this way, you're probably in a really good spot right now.
You're probably a 50-win team.
You're probably in a really, really good spot right now.
You're probably a 50-win team.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you did not follow like basics.
God, they were so close.
And like, look, I think McNair he tried so hard for the home run that when he struck out right at the draft and leading into early parts of free agency and couldn't get the deal done that he wanted to do, he had to do the deal that he thought was going to make enough noise, because he hears us yelling. He hears it all.
For sure.
He knows that the fans are clamoring, that the media is clamoring for them to do something that is impactful. And instead of making a move that made sense, he brought in a 35-year-old guy who did not make sense at all for his team build. And again, that's partially because of pressure from ownership. But at the end of the day, like, he's the one who did the deal, and it was a complicated trade.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine if he didn't have to defend 3 people in the starting lineup. Yeah. I'd say the original roster construction of Beam Team 1 was right.
Yeah. It was like they got Chris Duarte.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
Steven Castaneda, thanks for the reminder. We have a pro football draft watch party coming up at Cache Creek next Thursday. Yeah, pull up to Cache Creek. We'll be in the YOLO room from 4 to 5 p.m. We're doing a 1-hour live show.
Mm-hmm.
Me, James, Joe Brazil will be out there.
I'm free now.
Charlie will be out there. The Kings will not have a game because they were going to have a game. If they played Oklahoma City, if they won on Wednesday and won tonight, they were going to have a game that Thursday.
Yep.
But James and I will be there. We're doing a 1-hour show in the YOLO room, small, like conference room, beautiful, but just a smaller kind of intimate space. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk for an hour about the NFL draft. And then we're going to go watch the NFL draft in the Elevate Lounge. Good food, good drinks, a lot of TVs, good vibes. It's a casino. Michael play afterwards.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good night. I'm really excited to come hang out.
It's gonna be fun.
We're just vibing.
Yeah, we're gonna go have some
super
fun,
informal.
man.
We're gonna go
Looking
have
forward
a good time.
Absolutely.
I can't wait. Steven Castaneda wants you to pick him up on the way. I'm sure he's got a bottle of Patron to hook you up with.
Uh-oh.
You guys can hash that out.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, no, we were talking about the whole roster building thing, and it felt like they brought in Chris Duarte, right? Which, again, going into rewinding, before we knew that Chris Duarte just fouled everybody all the time. Before we knew that Chris Duarte played basketball with a bag of hammers. I love the idea because I liked him coming out of Oregon, 3-and-D guy, older guy, had a nice rookie season with the Pacers. I know he had the injury stuff, but you went, oh, this is the kind of player that can help. Knocks down threes, plays some good defense. I like this idea. And then that didn't work. And it was like they went, oh no, well, we're not doing that anymore.
But Kyle, it was from the first days that he took over the team, when Monty McNair first took over the team, there was so little activity. You remember the first offseason, which is the truncated, like coming out of the bubble, like that
weird
season.
Offseason for sure.
But he let Bogdan Bogdanovic go. He let Alex Len go, which actually mattered at that point because Alex Len had been really good.
Mm-hmm.
He let Kent Bazemore go.
Oh.
And he went into the season and said his 2 free agent acquisitions were Hassan Whiteside and Glenn Robinson III.
No, Warriors legend.
Right? So we had that moment where it's like, okay, this is year 1. It's okay. What we didn't realize is that he wanted to play on the fringe so much that the fringe became like beyond fringe. I mean, going into a trade deadline where you have a winning team and a chance not just to win the West, but to actually make noise, to actually be a shocking team that comes out of the Western Conference and has a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that, you get to the trade deadline and he trades for Kessler Edwards. And in that deal, he got $2 million and a 2nd-round pick. All you were doing was relieving the Nets of money.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of actually going out and trying to improve your team, you did nothing. You did nothing, and you did nothing the next offseason. You did nothing the next trade deadline, where the only thing you did was go out and pick up a Lopez brother. That's it.
Sort of.
And then waive him.
It's time now for the handoff. Taking the handoff from James and Kyle today, here's KC, Kenny Caraway.
There he is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, man.
And I'm glad we're talking about this because I came in to the studio on the drive-in. And so I'm gonna give these guys the opportunity. You know, I tap into the insiders every morning,
which we appreciate immensely,
especially on ESPN 13 on the radio.
Well, on the radio, yeah,
ESPN
big ups 13, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I was like, man, there's a couple things they talking about that I'm just sitting here and I'm talking back to the phone because I'm on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking back to the phone. I'm like, we could either have fun or we could choose violence.
Oh,
and the decision is yours.
Violence always. And then, and then we'll do NBA predictions.
Let's go. So I'm glad you guys are talking the way you're talking now, because I know I come off as this Vivek apologist, and I'm not. He's created a ton of problems himself.
Mm-hmm.
He created a ton of problems. But this is how I see the whole thing about let the basketball people do basketball things.
Mm-hmm.
You forced them to go get Zach LaVine and all this other stuff. You laid it out. I gave you 3 years to be the basketball person you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
You, and I think Monty McNair actually did more good than people give him credit for. I've kind of defended him. But when you lay a lot of stuff out, you were awful.
Yeah, he was done. He was done.
And now we got to the point where you said, I wanted Zach LaVine last trade deadline. And Monty won. Monty said, no, it'll ruin the cap. Don't get it. It got us nowhere. We didn't get into the playoffs. You were wrong, basketball person. You were wrong. Now, I'm tired of listening to you. Go get Zach LaVine. I'm not saying it's right, but I can say I understand. I listened to you for 2 years.
That's fair.
As a basketball person, and you got me nowhere. If anything, we regressed. The guy I've been trying to get for 4 years, and you told me no, 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 and I fell back. Is this correct? I wanted him. Monty didn't. At Vivek, I fell back. I did not force your hand, and you were dead wrong. Now, your ass and blown up this whole thing with Mike Brown, De'Aaron Fox, and all this other stuff. Go get the guy I want. Go get the guy I want. I'm sick of listening to you. And I think that is Vivek's issue more than constant meddling or constant making people a puppet. It's his impatience when things go wrong. Some would say he don't deserve Monty don't deserve no patience. After what we saw for 2 years, you didn't do nothing in that offseason. You couldn't get Siakam or OG Anunoby or anybody. You chose not to trade Keegan Murray, which I was in agreement at the time, but you were wrong. The history showed you were wrong. Yeah. You should have traded him to get one of those guys. Kevin Huerter, what I was looking back at the trade today, this whole first round protection, it's awful. It's awful. That's done as much damage as anything to this franchise. If you had to trade a first round pick for him, which sure, whatever, just give him the pick outright. Give him the 2024 pick outright. This whole protection thing has done as much as Zach LaVine or a draft pick or anything to ruin the future of this team. Monty, I can make the argument, was awful. And we get down to the end, and I say, bro, I'm not listening to you no more. Go get Zach LaVine, like I said 2 years ago. And then with that, unless you're telling me Vivek said, I'm going to orchestrate this deal and I want LaVine, I want this pick, the mandate seemed to be go get Zach LaVine. Whatever else you got to do at that point, do what you got to do. Why couldn't you get better picks? Why couldn't you get a Keldon Johnson? Like even that pick, he fumbled.
Oh, yeah.
He did an awful job every way around. So once again, I guess it does come off like I'm defending the Vivek, but let's be real. I gave you 2 years as a basketball person to do basketball things, and you got me nowhere.
Yeah, I think there's, if I can, there's two things here. Monty stinks. Like there's no. We've been talking on this program about Monty McNair being needed to go for months. The Vivek angle of this is much less about. I can't believe Vivek stepped in to go get Zach LaVine. It's less about that and more that he just doesn't. We're 13 years into this.
Yeah.
13. We're a decade and a half into this. At some point, like he's the one making the calls on who gets hired, who doesn't. And bad organizations always start at the top. And that's why Vivek comes up. I don't think that he was the one all 3 years of Monty going, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this.
Yeah.
I do think I do think Monty made a lot of mistakes. He wasn't good. Couldn't agree more. I think Vivek stepping in and saying, go get the guy I want is still a mistake.
And
that's
I would
fair.
tie it to this too. I would say, I think there is a point where they followed the basketball people and re-signed Mike Brown. Vivek he wanted to fire Mike Brown after day one. The game one. You could go back and look at the video that Matt George posted
of
Vivek with his hands and his daughter sitting next to him, consoling him after the entire arena is empty. And he's sitting there like after the game, like, oh my gosh, we're going to be bad. He broke somewhere along the way. And then it was like, okay, I'm done. Fire Mike Brown. I don't care anymore. I'm done. Fire Mike Brown. And they're like, okay. So they fired Mike Brown, and then that spun everything out of control. Go give me Zach LaVine. And that's where it's like, hey, look, you're still a basketball person. If you're Monty McNair and you're not comfortable with all that stuff, that's on your resume. Everything that we're talking about that he didn't do is on his resume. Everything that he did on the way out the door is now on his resume. And it's just really, really tough. And I don't blame Vivek. I agree. Like there's a point where he got frustrated and said, hey, I'm done dealing with it this way. but that doesn't mean that what he did was right. Like firing Mike Brown, like whether that was the moment to do it or not, you should have supported Mike Brown during the summer, getting him the pieces that he needed to be better. And at some point, when you got to the point where you're going to fire him, okay, you had to understand what the repercussions were. And I think they did, but at the same time, like, man, what a mess.
That's it. And we'll talk about that on D-Lo and Casey. I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I'm talking about.
At 30 seconds.
Jesse said a couple of weeks ago, and it looks like he was right. They should have made the decision with Mike Brown and De'Aaron Fox in the summer.
Yes.
And whoever's decision it was to bring him back was wrong. And you said it was Vivek who wanted to move on, and the front office brought him back. They were dead wrong, and that's where everything started. That is the beginning of all of this mess.
My response would be, it wasn't that moment. It was the moment after that when they decided to trade for DeMar DeRozan, because that is what spun the actual basketball on the court out of control.
More deals he couldn't get done, so they went to DeRozan. That was not the first choice.
Nope.
And he couldn't get deals done.
Nope.
KC's choosing violence today. D-Lo and KC coming up next. They're going to take you up to 4 o'clock, right up to the play-in games, beginning with the Miami Heat and Atlanta Hawks. Coverage begins at 4 o'clock right here on ESPN 1320. But don't touch that dial. D-Lo and KC next. For James Hammond, Joe Brazil, I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insiders. Back Monday at 10 a.m. right here on ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Theater. Have a fun and safe weekend. Drink water. Be nice to people. See ya.